Very good morning to you. If you're just joining us, let's bring you this story. Schools have opened for at least 3 weeks now after being closed for 2 months due to COVID-19. But the return has not been easy. Some schools complained about a lack of protective equipment, and now some Western Cape teachers are threatening to shut down schools. More grades are expected to resume classes on the 6th of July. For more on this, we're joined by the Director General at the Basic Education Department, Matanzima Mweli. DG, good morning. Thank you for your time. Let's start with your assessment of the past 3 weeks.
Good morning, Chloe, and good morning to your viewers. Well, the past 2 to 3 weeks have gone on well by any standard. We benchmarking with the international community. We've been touching base with other countries on how things have gone in their countries, and if we compare what is happening in our country and what's been happening elsewhere in the world, we think we are well on course, to get schooling fully resumed and back on track.
The situation in the Western Cape, though, DG, is threatening to get out of hand, or perhaps it might even be you already have parents out on the streets, you have principals who are lobbying the president or making pleas to the president to shut down schools there. The MEC is simply not budging.
Well, that's understandable, Chloe, isn't it? Community infections have been just flaring up in the Western Cape, and I suspect the same more or less could happen in the Eastern Cape, to some extent in Gauteng. So you would expect that in instances where community infections have been increasing, the level of anxiety and fear goes up, and teachers and school principals are members of communities. And where these infections have been increasing, they come from those communities, and they always fear for their lives as well. But we believe that what medical experts and scientists have advised that should be done could really help to either reduce or to prevent further infections. The non-pharmaceutical interventions such as social distancing, wearing of masks, keeping facilities clean, and using sanitizers. All over the world, that seems to be the only way of reducing infections or even preventing further infections.
Just listening to you talk, DG, you seem comforted by what the medical experts have advised, and confirm for me if my suspicions are correct that you're pushing ahead with this, particularly with the July 6th date, with phasing in more grades, because you are told that children at school, whether they are much younger or adolescent stage, they are not going to be as affected by this virus. Is that what makes you comfortable and sleep at night?
Well, Chloe, for me, there's no other option. Being in education, part of the challenge that we have in our country is the education around the pandemic and the virus. And people are caught up in anxiety and fear because of not having the requisite information. And because it's a public health crisis, Chloe, the only way, to deal with this is to follow advice of medical experts and scientists. If there's anything outside medical advice and scientists and even researchers, by the way, we've got a big team of researchers in this department who've been following trends in the world, who have also published articles, and they use that information to help us to inform decisions that we are taking.
DG, this morning we are reading reports suggesting that there are schools which have tanks, but there is no water in the tanks. How many of those?
Well, we targeted 3,500 schools We've now reduced the number because we then discovered that some schools did have tanks but did not have water. We've reduced the number substantially, clearly from what came down to 2,600. We've reduced it by about 500 schools that still don't have water. But the problem of water...
Can I just come in there, DG? I'm sorry to interrupt. Are you saying that it's only 500 schools now that do not have water?
Yeah, it's about 500. We meet every day, 6 o'clock in the morning. The numbers go down every day. But the last figures that I interacted with, I didn't attend this morning's meeting of 6 o'clock, was around 500 schools that still don't have water. In Mpumalanga, all schools have been covered. In fact, there are only 3 provinces that are still lagging behind. Is Eastern Cape, is KZN, is Limpopo. The rest of the other provinces that did not have water, they have water. And that put my head on the block.
DG, I'm worried. Is it simply water that these schools do not have, or is it also water tanks? And what seems to be the problem? Because we're reading that there's also the issue of corruption that is preventing the delivery of water.
To some extent, it is true. There is corruption. You know, Randwater reported also to us that they've been blocked by local business people in areas of KZN from delivering water because they are of the view that, you know, the contract should have been given to them. But clearly, we should also be thinking quite seriously as a country. We're using one water entity which was designed to supply water in Gauteng for the whole country, to supply water to 9 provinces. And that's why we are battling in the manner that we do. And the reason is that municipalities have collapsed. And in some cases, they've collapsed because people don't pay for services. I was really appalled to come across this shocking revelation that in all of Zululand, I mean, the municipality doesn't have the capacity to provide water. Water authorities are municipalities. They should be able to provide water to communities, provide water to schools. In Limpopo, tankers carrying water to schools were blocked by communities because communities said, we need this water more than schools. So we are not going to allow you to pass our communities to go and deliver water to schools. In other instances, water that's delivered to schools is used by communities. So the problem of water is much bigger than maybe we think about it.
Yeah. DG, I'm really sorry, DG, but I am out of time. I appreciate your level of transparency in this. I've got to put this question to you very, very briefly. I'm out of time. In Limpopo, I spoke to the MEC there at some point, and she indicated that there are children who are simply not schooling because their schools are not open because they can't meet the standards of COVID-19, but also the distance to the nearby school is simply too far. Is that still the case?
Well, our understanding is that instances where schools could not reopen, provinces gave us plans to provide alternative arrangements for such learners, because we are very clear that if schools are unable to reopen, there must be alternative arrangements for learners to continue to receive education.
DG Matanzima Mweli, thank you very much for your time.